Hey guys, it's Bella and welcome back to my channel. It's been a while. So yes, I have been gone for a long time and I'm really sorry about that. Life got extremely hectic, but I promise you I have like 4 or 5 videos that are in the process of being edited right now that will be posted soon enough. And obviously there's this one which I'm super excited to do because it is my top 10 favorite books of 2022. I have done one of these videos before, which I will link down in the description, but it was really fun to do last year, so I'm very excited for this year's rankings. Honestly, I'm sorry to say, but I read more books that I loved last year. It probably has something to do with the fact that I read not as many books this year. I really fell off my reading this year, but I still did find quite a few books that I loved. Also, it's not even Christmas yet, so I probably will read a few more books before the end of the year, and if I end up absolutely loving one of those, I'm just gonna put it in next year's video for my top 10 videos of 2023. Okay, so we're gonna start with number 10 on the list, which is Red Rising by Pierce Brown. So Red Rising was kind of a slow start for me, but once it got going, it got going. Oh my god. This is kind of a mix between like The Hunger Games and Divergent and just some of the more like stereotypical dystopian books, but done so much better. I mean, like, we all love The Hunger Games, but it does have that kind of like classic YA feel to it, and this definitely has a little bit of a darker tone. It has a bunch of references to Greek and Roman mythology, which I really loved because if you know me, you know that I'm a sucker for anything mythology. So during Red Rising, our main character, Darrow, kind of has to rise in the ranks, as the title would imply, as he's trying to start a rebellion, because again, this is kind of like a dystopian, like, you gotta be free from your oppressors kind of book. And he's fueled by something that happens in the beginning to someone he loves, and then he basically spends the rest of the book having to try and go through the ranks and compete in this school. So I won't really tell you more than that because I find it's better to go into a book with knowing less than knowing more, but I absolutely loved this book. My number 9 on the list is both surprising and unsurprising at the same time, and that is Crescent City 2 by Sarah J. Maas. So it's unsurprising that this book made the list, but it is surprising that it is this low because if you didn't know, Crescent City last year it took the number 1 place. So I kind of expected this to be higher, but to be honest, I loved the first book more, and even though the ending of this one blew me away, for a lot of it, I just wasn't quite as into it as I thought it would be. If you haven't checked it out, I have an in-depth review for this book on my channel, and I'll link it in the description, and it kind of gives some of my thoughts on things I loved and the things that I didn't love as much as the first one, but either way, it still made the list, I still loved it, and I'm still so excited for the third one. Crescent City 2 is part of the Crescent City series, as it would imply, by Sarah J. Maas, and it's her new adult series. So it's not a YA series like most of her other books, but personally, this is my favorite series. Maybe Throne of Glass is tied because like the nostalgia part of it, but I do think her writing has gotten so much better in her recent series. The series is like a fantasy, it's kind of like an urban fantasy with some of the traditional high fantasy elements mixed in, which I really appreciate. And the first book starts off as kind of a murder mystery almost, where a girl is trying to figure out who actually killed her best friend with the help of an angel, and she is half-fae. We have our main character Bryce, who was the girl in the first book, and she continues on in this book to be the best. I absolutely love her. She is the reason, or one of the reasons, why I love this series so much. So yeah, if you're into fantasy, that kind of stuff, then if you like Sarah J Maas at all, then I would definitely check this book out. The next book, I don't have the physical copy because I listened to the whole series as an audiobook, but coming in at number 8 is The Raven King, which is the last book in the Raven Cycle series. I generally would give the series overall like 4 stars, but the last one was definitely 5 stars for me. I loved it. It really raised the stakes and put my characters, the beloved characters that you've got to know through this whole series, through so much, and also two of my favorite characters get together in that book. So the Raven Cycle series is kind of another like urban fantasy mixed with horror, mixed with, I don't know, a little bit of sci-fi-ish feeling. I don't know if I'd really characterize it, but it's kind of hard to characterize. But yeah, it's basically urban fantasy. And it is a great series. Like I said, the whole series overall I would just say is good, but the last like 2 or 3 books I would say are fantastic, and the last one is my favorite. We follow our main character Blue as she interacts with this group of guys who go to a nearby school in their small town, and it's kind of like a preppy rich kid school, but a lot of mysterious things and magic starts to happen. Blue also lives in a family of psychics, so all of them kind of have their own unique powers, and it's just a good time all around. I read the Raven Cycle and I read Crescent City 2 earlier in the year. I kind of can't go as in depth as I would like to, but just know that I really did love these books and I would definitely recommend them. The next book on the list, coming in at number 7, is one of my more recent reads, and that is Life as We Knew It. I honestly didn't expect to like this book as much as I did, just because I don't really know a lot about I didn't really know a lot about it going in, and I don't know why it just didn't seem like a book that I would like as much. But I actually read this book for my book club, and it's like a survival story, kind of a survival apocalypse horror-ish story. It's about what would happen if the moon got knocked slightly off course, and as you can see, the moon is huge on the cover, and that's kind of what happens in the book is it gets really huge and all of these world-ending events start to happen. I won't go too in depth, but we follow our main character Miranda through a series of diary entries as the world slowly starts to fall more and more apart and her family has to survive. If you love survival stories like I do, then definitely check this one out because it is one of the best ones I have ever read. The rest of the series is good too. It's in a series of about 4 or 5 books, I believe, and I've read 3 of them. So I think the series is 4 books and I've read 3 of them. The last one kind of takes a turn that I didn't 100% like. I haven't finished that book. I've only gotten like 20 or 30 pages in, so it could be amazing, but I've only read the first 3. And I would definitely give this one 5 stars, the second one like 4 stars, and the third one like 4.5 stars. So, really good quality all around. Number 6 on the list is Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and Taylor Jenkins Reid like dominates this list considering I read all of her books except for like Malibu Rising this year, and oh my god, she's one of my favorite authors. Carrie Soto is Back is the lowest Taylor Jenkins Reid book on the list, but it is still incredible. Can we just take a moment, first of all, to appreciate the cover? Because, like, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous. It's probably my favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid cover ever. I just love it so much. So, Carrie Soto is Back is about this tennis player who was really, really good when she first competed, and she comes back because someone is about to overthrow her record that she set. So, she comes back to try and stop that from happening. And we kind of follow both the past version and the present version of her, where we see what happened originally and then how she changes and evolves in the future. Just like all Taylor Jenkins Reid characters, Carrie is a very realistic and very flawed character, which I love usually, but in this case, I kind of didn't connect with Carrie until the end. I think I connected with her previous characters a lot more, but I don't really know why. I mean, yeah, Carrie is a pretty abrasive and selfish character for a lot of this book. I don't really think her character growth comes in until, I don't know, the last 100 to 50 pages. So that kind of bothered me, and it's why it's lower on this list. But overall, the last 100 pages really took the cake. I ended up crying several times. I read this at school and I was just crying at school, so that says something. And I just think it's a really beautiful story, and it taught me a lot about tennis. So I know way more about tennis now. So if you like those kind of stories, if you like Taylor Jenkins Reid books, then I would definitely check this one out. It is just as good as her other ones, even though I prefer her other ones over this one. I would still say the quality is the same. Also, just a little disclaimer that I probably should have put earlier in the video. All of these books are very tightly ranked. Like, they could all move around, and a lot of these books I read earlier in the year, so I don't quite remember what I preferred, but I do love all these books, and that's really the takeaway from this video. Alright, coming in at number 5 is Circe. And if you didn't know, I do really love Madeline Miller books. I really loved The Song of Achilles, and Circe is no different. I do think I prefer The Song of Achilles. I'm not 100% sure because I think the first half of Circe I really loved. Like, I really connected with, and it explored a lot more mythology than Song of Achilles ever did, just because it had the opportunity to. So they're about even for me, but I would say the characters in Song of Achilles I prefer, whereas the story I probably prefer in Circe. So Circe, as you could probably tell, is about Circe. If you don't know, she's from Greek mythology, and there's a whole bunch of myths that kind of surround her, but usually she's painted as this witch who turns men into pigs. And she's most famously known for in the story of Odysseus in the Odyssey. So this is really the first time we get a super in-depth version of her story, because usually it's just her being told from other people's stories, and I really appreciated that. I also really appreciated how different myths were kind of woven into this that weren't woven into some of Cersei's stories. Like, Madeline Miller definitely took creative liberty and added some myths that she didn't need to, which I loved. I also read this while going camping with some of my best friends. That might have influenced this reading experience a little bit because I just have such nostalgic memories attached to it. But this book was excellent. I would definitely recommend if you love retellings, mythology, all that fun stuff. Next, coming in at number 4, we finally have a Leigh Bardugo book on this list. I absolutely love her. I love her books. This this is not one of her Grishaverse books. This is the first book in the Alex Stern series, and the second one either has come out or is coming out really soon. So I'm really excited to read that one. But Ninth House was really good. I think that she did a really good job exploring this kind of horror urban fantasy genre. As you can tell, that's like my favorite mixture, is horror, academia, urban fantasy kind of all mixed into one amazing book. And it was really gripping, it was really dark, and I absolutely love the flawedness of the characters. If you didn't know me, I absolutely love morally gray characters, and this book delivers with them. Ninth House is about this girl, Alex, who is let into Yale based off of kind of suspicious circumstances. And she is invited into one of the secret societies at Yale, and she kind of has to deal with that and everything going on in there. And it's kind of also a murder mystery. She's investigating some murders and trying to figure out who committed them. We're also kind of figuring out what happened to her and another character in their past and how it all weaves together in the present. So yeah, 5-star read. Would definitely recommend if you like Leigh Bardugo or if you like urban fantasy, horror, mystery, academia, any of that kind of stuff. The next one, I don't have the physical copy. I didn't read it in audio, although I definitely want to at some point because I've heard great things about the audiobook, and that is Daisy Jones and the Six. Yes, another Taylor Jenkins Reid's book, and when I heard that this book was amazing, people were not lying. It's told in a very unique way. It is about a fictional band from I believe it was the 60s. Yeah, okay, I just looked it up. It was the late 60s, so it wasn't going crazy. But it's about a fictional band who comes together and falls apart. It's the story told through like an interview kind of way. Like the characters are being interviewed, and that's the story. And it kept it really refreshing and easy to read, and also very personal. So I kind of loved that way of telling it. So yeah, Daisy Jones and the Six is about this fictional band from the 60s and the things that they go through and why the band eventually falls apart. I also read this during one of my trips that I took over the summer, so I don't know if that influenced it, but all I can say is that it was an amazing book. My second favorite Taylor Jenkins Reid book so far. All right, coming in at number 2. Yes, another Taylor Jenkins Reid book. Like, listen, I told you she dominated this list, and she really did. But this book, oh my god, I really love this book. It is my favorite of hers. It has a bisexual icon as the main character. It is incredible. I've talked about this in several videos. I'll try and link them all down in the description, but I don't really remember all of the videos that I've talked about it in. But it is basically about this famous actress and she's kind of like a Marilyn Monroe type character where she has a lot of history and she's been in a lot of movies and a really like a lot of iconic movies. And it's her telling her story through an interview to this young interviewer that they're kind of tied together in some way that we don't really find out until the end. So similar to the Daisy Jones and the Six, but not following the exact same formula. It's more like a novel format rather than Daisy Jones and the Six, which was a little bit uniquer. But I love the characters in this book. I love the main character, Evelyn Hugo, and I love finding out the story of her life through her 7 different husbands. But yeah, she's a bisexual icon. I would definitely recommend this book, and I just love it. All right, the number one pick, my favorite book of the year, is probably going to be pretty unsurprising considering a lot of people absolutely adore this book. But you know what? So do I, and there's a reason. There's a reason why so many people do. So, my favorite book of 2022 was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by Victoria E. Schwab, and I just everything about this book I absolutely adored. Every character in this book was so well developed and fleshed out, and there were a lot of morally gray characters that I loved. So, yes, that probably swayed my opinion a bit, but I just remember closing this book and absolutely sobbing. And when a book can do that to you, well, I love it. So, this is about Addie LaRue, who doesn't really like her life. It's the 1700s, and women just have to kind of marry whoever their families say, and she doesn't like that. She's really independent and kind of just wants to focus on her art, and eventually she is being forced to marry this guy, and she really, really doesn't want to. So she ends up praying to several gods, and none of them answer until one day she accidentally ends up praying after the sun sets, and someone answers. So in this book, you're not really supposed to trust the gods that answer you at night, but she feels like she doesn't really have a choice in this situation, so she accepts his deal and ends up getting cursed. Her curse is that she's immortal, but over all of her years, she's not going to be remembered by anyone. As soon as she leaves the room, people forget her. She can't make any art, she can't write anything, she can't make any physical place in history. And the only way to end this curse is to give up and give her soul to him, which is his ultimate goal. But this book is basically her life and her finding ways to make her place in history and eventually figuring out how to maybe break her curse. I love Addie as a main character. She's definitely one of my favorite main characters of all time. She's so strong and feisty, but also just really sad. And she just struggles so much over this book, but never gives up. Also, the main villain and slash love interest of this book is really interesting and really well fleshed out. And even though there's a lot of things we don't get answered about him, we really clearly get his personality throughout this book. The other love interest is absolutely adorable, and I love their connection, and I love them so much together. And the plot twists, oh my god, the whole thing was just so, so good. So, yes, if you haven't checked this out, it's by V. Schwab. She's written a bunch of other stuff, but this is definitely my favorite so far. And definitely, definitely check this out. I don't really know what it would be classified as like maybe like an urban fantasy. I don't know. It's not really an urban fantasy, but it's kind of what it is. So, yeah, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I love it. My number one book for this year. Definitely check it out. All right, so that's it. Those are my top 10 favorite books of 2022, and I really hope you enjoyed them. And let me know if there's any that you agree with or disagree with. I want to know what your favorite book of 2022 was and how many books you read this year. I'm probably going to end up reading like 55. I haven't put all of them into Goodreads yet, so we'll see. But in the past, I've read a lot more, but school's been really doing a number on me recently. So yeah, again, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm so sorry for the long break that I took, but I'll be back with many more videos to come. They will probably be coming out late December, early January, and I'm really proud of a lot of these videos, so I hope you guys like them. But if you did like this video, make sure to give it a like, subscribe, turn on those post notifications, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!